everybody. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast. Now, when I speak, my topic is something that I call Take the Doughnut, which for me is another way of saying Carpe Diem. Go after the things that you want in life. And something I wanted to do this year was to rewatch the show Halt and Catch Fire, but this time talk about it with other people, with all of you. So this has been so much fun. And I wanted to give a little caveat here because I've actually been traveling for a few weeks. So I pre-recorded the last several episodes. And so if you've been listening real time and sort of commenting on things as I went along, you might notice that I haven't brought in any really recent comments lately, but I will be catching up after this podcast. And I've been trying to bring old comments into the feedback section. So a lot of times stuff from season 1 or season 2 becomes relevant as we go later into the series. And that's what I've been working on. But today we are going to cover season 3, episode 6. And before I get into it, in case you missed it, the most recent interview that I dropped was with Kimberly Adams, costume designer for seasons 1 and 2. Definitely keep your eyes peeled to the video itself as we're going through. We heavily utilized screen sharing so that you could actually see the stuff that she was working on. Kimberly pulled up her old files from working on this show. And I certainly don't know much about clothing and costume design. You might have noticed from my coverage here that I don't often talk about the clothes. And so it was awesome to have Kimberly really unearthing everything that she had to say about working on seasons 1 and 2. So huge thank you to her for joining in, for bringing visual aids and all of that good stuff. But today we're going to talk about season 3, episode 6, which was called And She Was. This originally aired September 20th, 2016. It was directed by Michael Morris and written by Angelina Burnett. Here's the description. Joe moves forward with his and Ryan's NSF net plan, but the board is less than enthusiastic about the idea. Cameron and Gordon bond for the weekend while Donna takes some time to herself and Bosworth grows closer to Diane. This was a really fun, character-driven story. I just really feel like now that we're well into season 3, we're getting deep into all of these relationships that they want us to explore. A lot of combinations we haven't seen before in the show have been emerging in season 3, and now they're feeling a little bit more lived in, which I'm loving. So let's get into the scene by scene breakdown for it, shall we? Okay, we start in a bright white light. They're really playing with these lights these days. You know, we've got like the end of 302 where Gordon is sort of staring into the light. You know, we saw in a recent episode where Gordon was looking at the microwave counter as it was counting down, and it started as a big bright light. This light is in a different context. We start in that very bright white light. It's a ceiling light. The camera moves down from that, and we're going to see Joe and Ryan. So we're playing with light with Joe and Ryan right now. And they're standing in a big empty room. A room that will eventually have a mainframe in it. And that is what they need to work on here. So we're going to start with Joe saying, so when does that 3090 get delivered? And that haze of white light is slowly dissipating. I like that over several lines of dialogue here, that bright light is just slowly, hazily dissipating. And then eventually they'll come into focus more. They'll become clearer. So he says, so when does that 3090 get delivered? Ryan says, they said by 5 p.m. today. Joe says, and we've got Stanford on Monday, right? Ryan says, Cisco and MCI the week after. White haze is almost clear now. We're getting a good look at them. Joe says, I'd take a good look. Soon it'll be hardware and handshake deals, endless troubleshooting and upgrades. But right now, it's perfect. They're looking around in this space. This is where it's all going to happen. Joe's walking towards the camera. I'd like to highlight that line right now. It's perfect because we're going to, we're seeing an echo of that from Ryan as well. And I'll highlight that as we get there. But yeah, there's this idea that like right now, there's nothing in this space. It's all in our heads and it's perfect. Only everything that comes after this can mess that up. I also like that, through this exposition, we're getting a sense that they are really starting to implement their ideas. They're moving into execution mode. They're getting everything together. They're on the same page. Ryan, it sounds like, has been doing a little bit more of the secretarial work, booking things, working with vendors, getting the logistics organized. So he says, right now it's perfect. Ryan says, the room. Joe says, the idea. So basically the idea is perfect until you start doing something with it. Joe says, all goes well. By the end of the month, we'll be sitting down with the sector chief of NSFNet to walk him through the bid. It's Mitch Clouden. We go back to my IBM days. Joe pulls something out of his wallet. He pulls out his wallet, pulls out a card from his wallet, gives it to Ryan. Hands Ryan the card. He says, he's a good guy, sharp dresser, regarding Mitch. So now I love this needle drop. I love this song choice. Jockey Full of Bourbon starts to play. It's just a cool song. There's one specific lyric that I think really colors how I look at this scene and how I look at this relationship of Joe and Ryan. I tried reading the lyrics for Jockey Full of Bourbon, and I'm going to be really honest with you, it doesn't make a lick of sense to me, but the line that resonates does make a lot of sense to me. So I don't know, try looking up Jockey Full of Bourbon and tell me what you think this song is about. Because I guess I just am not immersed in that culture. I don't know. I tried, I really did. So Jockey Full of Bourbon has this very like cool sound to it. And we've got these two guys, and we're going to get into this little, I don't know, montage of Ryan and Joe being a team. But it goes beyond that even. So first of all, as the song is beginning, we see Ryan holding the Macaroni Taylor by appointment business card. The camera gets a nice good view of that. So he's basically saying, it's sort of like Joe's sort of turning him into a mini Joe. And it's going to start with the clothes. But then it's going to become the tutelage as we go through. So the music really begins to play. We see people wheeling in and installing equipment into this room, all of these vendors that Ryan's been working to set up. Joe, we also see that Ryan is taking the lead with the vendors. Joe is sort of sitting, looking at the plans. Ryan is like walking around the room, talking to vendors, trying to make things happen, like moving very quickly to try to make sure everything's done right. We see Joe rolling out cable. Then we see Joe and Ryan rolling out cable. I absolutely love this touch. It works beautifully with the music. It's almost mesmerizing, the song and the cable and all that. Then we're going to see Ryan sort of in the ceiling, checking out the cable with the flashlight. He's checking up how, what's going on above the ceiling tiles. Then we're going to see Joe on the floor reading plans again and drinking coffee while Ryan talks with the workers regarding the installation. You can see who's been assigned the task of working with the vendors. Joe and Ryan walk. I love this little moment. I love all of these little moments. Joe and Ryan are walking past a Cisco Systems logo, but Ryan's like at least a body length ahead of Joe, walking as quickly as he can, looking back to make sure Joe's catching up. We see Joe continuing to pull and cut the cable. Ryan is talking with the worker in the foreground while Joe looks on in the background. I love this. And Ryan, we see in focus, Ryan talking with somebody, with a worker. And then we see Joe not in focus, and then he comes into focus. He's looking on and he's smiling because he's just like, this, my guy, the guy I'm mentoring. He's doing it. He's doing it all. Yeah. So he's smiling at Ryan as he watches Ryan really taking command and, becoming a doer. He's not just a person who has ideas and sort of squeaks them out at people who don't understand them. He's making things real. So the like I said, the verses of Jockey Full of Bourbon make no sense to me, but the chorus does. Hey little bird, fly away home. That line makes a lot of sense to me. I feel like seeing these scenes with Joe looking on at Ryan and hearing hey little bird fly away home, it's just this little like, just like go fly out of the nest, fly into the nest, fly wherever you need to, but fly. And that's sort of Joe looking on at Ryan saying that. Now what comes after this, I don't know. Your house is on fire, your children all alone, or your children are alone. Okay. Hey little bird fly away home. It's the hey little bird fly away home part. I just love seeing that line in the context with these scenes. Now the montage continues. Ryan is in the ceiling with a flashlight. He's checking out the wiring. He has a flashlight in his mouth. He drops it onto the floor below, and Joe's just standing there looking up at him, and Ryan sort of drops down. He's like, oops. He's doing his best. He's learning the hard way. He's getting it mostly right. They continue rolling out the cable, which is so peaceful to watch. Then we're going to see the top of a mainframe from the ceiling looking down as if Ryan's still on the ceiling. We see the top of a mainframe. Wow, they've set up a lot. And then the camera reveals Ryan, who's looking at the mainframe proudly. Joe comes in. He pats him on the back. Ryan smiles. Ryan is so happy. Look at what Ryan has accomplished. Look at what Joe and Ryan have accomplished together, but I think you're really getting a sense that Joe has delegated quite a lot of this. And Joe has never been necessarily bad at delegating. He's, often been the person who's given, a lot of the more technical tasks to the people who have that expertise. But he is, he's fostering Ryan's development here, because Ryan was a guy who could knock on Joe's door and say, I want a job, but he didn't have an idea beyond that. And now, they've had these ideas together, they're executing them together, and Ryan is really taking a lead in this area. So I just love seeing how proud Ryan is throughout this episode. It looks like he's having these great moments of fulfillment as they go through this episode. So now we're going to see Joe and Ryan with Mitch Clouden of NSFNet. Ryan is in his suit. He doesn't quite look, he doesn't wear a suit quite like Joe, but he looks good in his suit. And he is somewhere along the way, he's been learning. If I think back to the Ryan in the beginning of this season who pitched to Cam and Donna and had this like urgent energy behind him, this you don't understand me energy. And then I look at this Ryan who stands, who sits poised in his suit having a business meeting with Mitch and Joe, and who basically knows when to speak and when not to, who has obviously worked long enough with Joe where they, like Cam and Donna, have sort of figured out how to present together, how to pitch together. And so they're really presenting a great united front. They understand what their roles are and when. And this is where Ryan is now. So Mitch is saying, okay, this all sounds fantastic. I have to discuss it with the team, but I should have an answer for you by Monday. Ryan is smiling. He stands along, and as Mitch stands, Joe says, excellent. Mitch looks at Ryan, he goes, and you, where'd you find this one? He shakes Ryan's hand. Ryan chuckles a little bit like, oh, stop. Ryan. Mitch says, great to meet you, Ryan. Hell of a head on those shoulders. Ryan's like, thank you, Mitch. Mitch says, and a nice cut on that suit. That's right, macaroni tailoring, everybody. Joe shakes Mitch's hand. He lets him out of the room. Mitch is like, it was great to see you again. They exchange that sentiment. Joe says, thanks for coming by. He closes the door. Ryan waits for the door to close. He knows enough to sort of hold off on his emotion, and he knows when to hold back and when to release here. And so Joe turns to Ryan now that Mitch is gone and sort of gestures to Ryan to keep it down. And Ryan sort of silently pumps his fist and he smiles. And he turns back to the window and he looks out at the cityscape. And he is just so satisfied. I mean, highest of highs for Ryan, basically across this episode. Okay, now for a really interesting storyline. Cam and Tom are chatting online. Kim has her headphones on. We can't tell what music is playing, but she's got something going on. And the computer's beeping with every message. So we're hearing that sound really underscore this whole scene. T. Rendon says, but it went okay? Kim, how? As expected, but it's done. T. Rendon says, I bet it was kind of hot. So I'm guessing this means like confronting Donna about the stuff she was working on. That's my assumption. Cam, I bet it was kind of hot. Cam blinks a little bit. She writes, sure, if awkward and pissed off is your thing. And then she kind of smiles a little bit. T. Rendon says, I need to tell you something. Her smile fades. She says, okay. She braces herself. T. Rendon says, I told my mom she's really happy for us. Cam softens a little bit, but she looks worried. Like, I feel like it could have been worse, but she's worried about this getting out, apparently. Cam says, she's not going to call here, is she? Cam looks pretty worried about having said that out of worry. And so now she's second guessing herself. And she writes again, sorry, it's fine. So much going on right now. And T. Rendon writes, you're going to be late. She raises her eyebrows. So he knows her schedule. They're communicating frequently enough where they're kind of up to date on what's happening for each other. So we're going to see what she was late for, or what she was going to be late for. Boz is reading a paper. He's drinking coffee in his office, that office area with that conference table. A couple of the headlines on the paper: Rehnquist nomination okayed by Senate panel, and then Vietnam frees ex-Green Beret it held for a year. So that's what's happening right now in the world, and that's what Boz is reading about. Gordon walks into this office, sees nobody at the conference table. He's like, did I get the wrong time? Boz says, no, your info's as good as mine. Haven't seen Met or Jeff all day, and the ladies are in their respective foxholes, as seems to be their wont these days. So it's, much like we were starting to see in the last episode, it's been a little weird. There's been some tension in the office. No less with Boz and Cam, by the way, who have not cleared the air, it would seem. So Gordon sits down at the head of the table. He's like, do you ever try to be the bigger man in this business, but the universe just gives you a shit sandwich for your efforts? Boz smiles. He says, indeed I have. You ask this to the man who went to prison for all of you. He says, indeed I have, but I'm treating myself to turn dot, so I can't complain. Gordon says, what? Boz says, turn dot. He gestures with a flourish of his hand. Turn dot. The opera. He goes to sit at the conference table with Gordon, to be amongst the people. Boz says, I'm broadening my horizons, my new town. Gordon's like, it's turn-do. Boz sits with that a second with this very like, oh, well, look on his face. And he goes, Gordon says, It was a good try though, Boz. I mean, you gave it your best. Cam's going to come in. She's going to sit down. She says, hey. Gordon says, hey. It's a little chilly between Boz and Cam. Donna comes in. Sorry, guys, I got stuck on a call. Cam says, okay, let's get started. She's just like, let's just dive right in. She doesn't want any of the pleasantries. Donna says, she said, shouldn't we wait for Doug and Craig? Cam says, well, that would be a waste of time. Donna says, why? Cam says, I fired them. Cam, in this scene and the next scene, Cam is just staring at Donna with this, I got you look. Like, I know what you did. I dare you to say you didn't. I dare you to look back at me. She has this very challenging energy at Donna. So she says, I fired them. She's staring at Donna. Gordon scoffs. Donna looks with concern at Cam because she's going to try to pass it off like this is still, remember, she had thrown Diane under the bus saying, no, Diane said you can't do that. So she has to sort of keep that farce up for a second here until she knows what's going on. Boz just puts his head in his hands. It's like, oh my God, this is the match that's going to light the stick of dynamite. I mean, it's just, what a mess they're all having. It's so much tension in this office. Donna says, when? Kim says, this morning, with a smile. She says that. She's just challenging her. She says it with a smile. It's like, ask me more. Just try. Donna says, why? Kim says, well, swap meet's fully integrated and the cache features bug-free, so I no longer need them. She says it all with a smile and a nod. Like, we just don't need them anymore. Donna says, and what are we going to do about their earnout? She's just straight bat response. She's trying to keep up this charade. Donna says, I feel like Diane was pretty clear she wanted us to make it work. That was probably a mistake. Cam goes, was she? With this very like, oh, really? Attitude. This was Diane? Diane said we should do this? You sure it was Diane? Donna's starting to realize she was busted here. So she's like, yeah, I mean, Cam cocks her head as she sees Donna struggling, and they kind of know that they both know that they know. Donna says, well, why would you? I just wish you discussed it with us first. Dave is going to knock and interrupt. He says, sorry, Diane Gould is here for both of you, Cam and Donna. Cam's not breaking her gaze at Donna at all. Donna is just open-mouthed at all this because she's just been caught. Now Diane's coming in. Cam says, oh, should be fun. Cam's going to play with this as much as she possibly can. She's playing with it, but she is angry. Okay, so we're going to see Donna, Diane, and Cam meeting in Donna's office now. Diane's sitting under a task list, and I froze the screen here because this lists all the people who are listed as foremen for different tasks. And here I was able to get all of the names, I think, but one. So we've got Yo-Yo, Bodie, Julie Yang, Gizmo, Rockafire, Night Shift, Lunchbox, Kodak, Animal, Short Round, not sure about this one, Trader Madman, and then Red Dead. So that's the nicknames for the folks in the office. Whether or not we've met all of them by those names, those are the names that they're putting up on the board. Dan says, well, I must admit, I'm surprised. I thought you had all found a manageable workflow. So Diane's been given the news about Doug and Craig. Donna looks at Cam. Cam looks back with her eyes nice and wide and a smile, like, let's see what happens here. Donna backs down from this challenge. She is so busted. So Donna says, well, we discussed it. We decided that Doug and Craig's usefulness had run its course. Cam made Donna be the first one to answer this. Cam says, and we both figured based on our earlier conversations that you'd have our backs on this. Cam has very like, as per our previous email energy going on here. It's never good to bring in energy like what she's got into a meeting. She's toying with Donna, but she is pissed. So, okay. Here's what we both figured based on our earlier conversations. You'd have our backs on this. Diane says, well, as I've said, I'll authorize the earnout if that's what you feel you need. Cam stares at Donna and she smiles. Gotcha. But that's not what I'm here to discuss. Donna is being very tight-lipped here. It's like, I don't know if I can take any more of this. Dan says, I have news. You have an acquisition offer. This breaks the ice. They don't know what to do with this information. There's so much weird energy flying around in this room. And this was the very last thing I think they expected to talk about today. Diane says the offer's from CompuServe. Donna and Cam kind of look at each other with confusion. Cam says, CompuServe? Dan says, I know, I don't think it's a good fit either, but it set a floor. Donna's sort of considering all of this and the implications. She says, how much? Dan says, 20 million. Cam exhales. Donna's like, that's 4 times what West Group offered. Have we really grown that fast? And she's looking between Cam and Diane in just disbelief. Like, am I hearing this right? Diane says, here's the thing. And I didn't think we'd be having this conversation so soon, but I think it's a good time to consider the possibility of an IPO. Donna and Cam are just reeling from this. An IPO? We're talking about an IPO. We were about to fight about Doug and Craig. Donna's like, the things we could do with that influx of cash. She's starting to think about it now. The wheels are turning. Cam puts a hand up. She's like, okay, it's not like we get to spend the money though, right? I mean, we'd have to get a board. We'd have to chase quarterly earnings. Diane says, absolutely. But it's also important to consider the landscape. Look at Sun, Oracle. I mean, Jesus, the money that Microsoft has raised. Donna's taking all of us in. Diane says, plus right now, Mutiny is the dominant player in the online transaction market. Once they hear the news of this offer, there will be imitators. Cam's hearing all this out. She's sitting against the windowsill. She's sort of shifting around. She's trying to get comfortable with the idea. She obviously has reservations. You can already see just in how they're responding to this. Cam is inclined to be a little bit like, hold on a second. And Donna is inclined to be more like, this is interesting. So there's sort of a lean away, lean in thing that's happening here between them in their initial reactions. Donna looks at Cam like willing her to have an open mind. And she says, I mean, just think everything we've ever wanted to play with, we could hire a whole team for R&D. Cam's arms are folded. She sort of puts her hands up. She says, yeah, okay, I'm not chopping my company up into pieces so you can ring a bell on Wall Street. A number of times in this episode, Cam is saying things like my company, my. There is no our. She is feeling betrayed. She's feeling very defensive. And she is saying, this is my company. She wants to protect what she feels is hers. Not that she necessarily often talks about it as their company. We don't often hear her saying our, even in their previous conversations, even dating back to season 2. But the number of times she says my in this episode, and it just lands weirdly on Donna every time, as it should, because she's saying, no, we're not really partners. Like, know your place. So Donna is open mouthed for all of this. That little like ring a bell on Wall Street line also gets Diane looking between them. She's like, she has clocked the weirdness between them. Cam sees them both looking at her. She starts to get antsy. She says, okay, this is just a lot. I need time to process, which is fair. Totally fair. Donna says with bitterness, sure, okay, take all the time you need. Like, we'll do whatever you're doing, Cam. Diane's staying pretty diplomatic here. She says, this is a huge decision and both of you should take a lot of time with it. She stands and then she says, but whatever you have going on here, you need to deal with it. She is perceptive in a room. I mean, not that this was particularly subtle, but she understands, like, remember, what she is paying for is their relationship, and their relationship is weird now. So not only do they have a big decision to make, but they don't seem to be in a place to make a big decision together. Donna's going to sigh with some frustration. Kim just kind of blinking that comment from Diane away. Diane says, I'll tell you what, I have a place up in Sonoma. She starts grabbing keys from her purse. She says, it's a little vineyard. It's quite peaceful. It's a good place to get your thoughts in order. Why don't you guys go there? Take the weekend, get on the same page. Cam looks at Donna just with suspicion in her eyes. Donna accepts it. She takes the keys from Diane. She says, we'd love to. Diane says, great. She's going to walk to the door. Donna's going to see her out of the office. Diane says, I'll be around all weekend if you want to talk any of this through. Donna's like, thanks, Diane. Really? Cam smiles her goodbye. She doesn't even really move from where she was standing. As Diane leaves, Donna looks back at Cam. Cam gives her like a, what do you want face? Donna's going to just sort of purse her lips a little bit, or whatever that, how would you describe that face? That like, she says, do you want to drive up tonight or tomorrow? Like, let's do it. Cam says, yeah, well, while a wine farm retreat with you sounds super romantic, I'm busy this weekend. She walks past Donna out the door. She leaves Donna just standing there. Donna knows she was caught. Donna knows Cam is angry. They haven't met that head on, but it's very, very obvious. Donna knows why Cam is angry. And it's like, I'm not in a place to do this with you. Cam is not busy that weekend, but Donna's not pressing her luck. All right. We are now going to see Joe presenting. It's pitch time, pitch to the board time. Joe is in the front of the room presenting. There is a map with basically that string map that was on the cork board before. It's on transparencies on a projector, and it is being projected onto Joe's face. Now, ordinarily, I would say to presenters, stand to the side so that something's not being projected on your face. But I think that this works really well for how we've often seen people's faces like in screens before. This is another way of showing that to us. Ryan is at the projector controlling the lifting of the transparencies, basically controlling the visual aids. So Joe's saying, modern society sits on a foundation of services we now take for granted. Railroads, highways, water, power. With each of those words, Ryan is lifting one of the transparencies off, and it's taking away a layer of what would have been the strings on the corkboard. So when they get to the last one, they're left with the strings that they had been focusing on the corkboard. He says, network computing will be the next great public utility. My actions have placed us at the vanguard, and we are poised to reap vast rewards. Ken and the board are all just listening to this. He says, America's early entrepreneurs were bound by space and time. This new network will be limitless. The network map is still over his face. Ryan shuts the projector off. They know all of their timing on this. They've practiced it. They've worked it out. So that's the end of the pitch. Ken says, well, just to be clear, the NSF-Net is a nonprofit, right? It's just for research labs and governments and colleges. This seems like a legitimate clarifying question. It doesn't seem like he's pushing back. It seems like he's absorbing it. He says, there's no commercial use. Joe says, that's correct. On page, Ryan says 22. Joe says, there's a memo from Taylor and Ernst Strategies. The board looks through their proposals. They get to page 22. Joe says, they anticipate a 5-year legislative process. One of the board members says, and we've already spent $6 million on the 3090 and another $400,000 on routers and switches. Another board member says, wait, with these speed and capacity issues, why are we investing in faster equipment than the network can bear? Ryan says, it's only $56K now, but all signs point to a T1 upgrade coming soon. They've prepped. They knew that question was coming. They're ready with the answers. Ryan was ready with the answer. Joe says, guys, I understand the skepticism. There's no denying this is a bold futures bet, but it's a sure one. It may take some time, but the money will come. I really like, I'm kind of learning from that approach in terms of like pitching and meeting objections. There is a book I'll make a book recommendation here. I don't know if any of you have heard of the book Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. He was a lead hostage negotiator for the FBI for years. And it's very much a tactical empathy based techniques for negotiating book. And one of the things that he mentions is idea of like just saying what they're thinking right up front. Like, you're going to think this is too much. You're going to think this is crazy. You're going to, Joe coming in and saying, this is a bold futures bet. Sure is. It's like, instead of somebody in the room having to say that as a way of saying no, he's saying that up front. He's taking it off the table and daring them to look beyond it. So it's like, we're starting on the same page. And now here's why you should continue listening anyway. So Ken is sort of feeling out the room here. He says, you know what, gentlemen, why don't we do this? Why don't we take the weekend to digest this impressive proposal? What do you say? Yeah? Good. He slaps the proposal. He slaps the table at the same time. He says, thank you very much. He stands. They all stand. Joe's shaking board member hands on their way out the door. They're filing out of the room. Ken saying his goodbyes, chatting with people. Hey, you owe me 18, probably 18 holes of golf. Ryan is going to open the blinds. Joe's going to go over to the window. So, everything was delivered in the room. Ken is now going to join Joe at the window. Ryan is hanging back. He's still in the room, but he's sitting on Joe's desk, letting those two be at the window. Ken says, I love the ambition. I do. I just need you to slow down. Joe says, we wait, we lose. Ken says, I hear you. I do. And I believe in your vision. That's why I'm here. But please, Joe, no more purchases. No promises. They bought all of this stuff on the company dime, all of the stuff that they used to set up that mainframe. They went ahead and did it before this meeting. So the board's a little reticent about it. Joe says, just get them on board. That's why you're here. Ken sort of closes his mouth, and he has this, I'm sensing from him a little bit of a, oh, is that why I'm here? Kind of attitude. I suspect Ken has had a fairly hard job to do because Joe has a reputation. Joe has a significant reputation, is easily researched. And while he has often been on the right side of ideas, he has been on the wrong side of destructive moves towards the companies he's worked for. He also, he doesn't necessarily have the stick-to-itiveness that perhaps they would want. So there's probably a bit of caution there. And Ken is apparently his liaison. He's probably board chair. And he has to make sure that he's communicating things to the rest of the board. Joe has this, I'm going to do it anyway, attitude about things. And but he has a board to answer to. And that is something to contend with. And Ken is the guy in the middle of all of this. So he has some, I don't necessarily look at Ken as a guy that's like, he doesn't come across so much as an asshole to me. He does things that you're like, oh, this guy can. But he comes across as a guy who's in a very awkward negotiating position where he has to be diplomatic. He is sort of like Diane between Cam and Donna right now, except his job is to be between Joe and the board, ultimately. And so, is Ken board chair? Is he COO? I don't know that I have gotten his title before, but he is certainly, he is the one responsible for making sure whatever page Joe is on, that the company is getting on the same one. So Ryan watches as Ken leaves because he's been now tasked with making sure the board gets on board with this idea. Joe says to Ryan, well, this is the process. You should have seen their faces when I told them Citadel was going to be free. Ryan grins a little bit. Joe says, good work today. And Ryan's just like, yep, I'm part of the process. I just am really marveling at how everything that, every move that Ryan is making in front of the major players is practiced, rehearsed, ready. He knows when to speak, he knows what to say, he knows how to address objections in a way that, when I think about how he tried to pitch to Cam and Donna, he was raising really good points and he was not getting through. A board member asks a question here, he gives them a one-sentence answer that directly addresses them. He knows when to turn off the projector. He knows when to take the transparencies off. He's got a rhythm to this. And I feel like he's come a long way, and how much further could he go? I mean, could he come up with the idea all on his own? I don't know. I think Joe has a very specific talent in certain areas, but I do think they make a good team. All right, let's go to the Clark house. Donna is walking through the hallway. She can hear Cam's music from Cam's room. Cam's door is closed. Donna's going to knock on the closet door. She's going to find Gordon with the ham radio, as he likes to do. Gordon says, yeah. She says, you sure you don't mind me going? Gordon says, no, it's fine. It's fine. Donna's going to reach over him to grab a bag from the rack of stuff, it's a storage unit behind him, and she's grabbing something from a top shelf of the rack. She says, well, I appreciate it. I really need some time away from Cameron. Gordon says, and I just need 1 damn hour of peace, okay? The girls think this place is, and Donna's like, oh my God, and a whole bunch of bags fall on Gordon's head and on his ham radio. He's like, Donna. She says, babe, I'm so sorry. He says, which one do you want? She picks the one she wants. She says, thank you. Who are you talking to anyway? She rubs his shoulder. He says, just some guys. He really doesn't want to talk. He wants an hour of damn peace already. Did you hear him? Donna says, well, I'm glad you're having fun. She kisses him on the head. She goes out to the hallway. As she is coming out, Cam opens the door of her bedroom. She's going to bring a stack of dishes out with her. She's just been getting food from the kitchen, bringing all of it into her room to eat. They've obviously not been interacting very much in the house. Unfortunately, now as Cam goes to bring all of this stuff into the kitchen, they spot each other in the hallway and they're going to ignore each other. Donna is going to look away and walk away. Cam's going to walk to the kitchen. Gordon shuts the closet door emphatically, and that is what it feels like to be in the Clark household right now, in the Clark/Cam household. Okay, so what is all this stuff that Cam was going to be busy with? Well, we are going to see Cam play Nintendo. Super Mario Brothers. We're going to hear the Super Mario Brothers music throughout this episode. Gordon, Haley, and Joni are all watching Cam play. Joni is they're all on the couch. Joni's upside down with her feet up over the back of the couch. The rest of them are sitting in an upright position. We're going to see them from the front, and then we're going to see them from behind, so we can see Joni's feet first, and we're going to watch the TV. Cam's like, no, sorry. So she's trying to play. Everybody's watching. Haley and Joni are just staring at this screen. Joni is drinking a Capri Sun. She's really into the Capri Suns in this episode. I don't know that I have ever actually had a Capri Sun, but everybody had them in their lunch boxes in middle school for sure. And probably years around that as well. It was a popular drink. Gordon's like, no, wait, slow down. You're going to miss the coin room. So he's coaching her. She's like, where? Gordon says, the tube on the left. We're going to see Mario jump into the tube. He's like, but watch out for the piranha. And she's dead. Mario's dead. Cam's like, no, grr, come on. Oh, man. Haley's like, can we please play now? The girls have been waiting to play this game. Cam says, in a second. Haley rolls her eyes. She sighs. The signals are not subtle in this house right now. Cam says, we're better at the bosses. Joni's like, then how come you're dead? Touche. Excellent question, Joni. Gordon says, look, guys, why don't you all go outside, okay? It's nice out, just till we finish this world. Haley's like, but that'll be 40 and 100 hours. Accurate. So accurate. Gordon says, okay, look, you guys go outside, ride some bikes. Cam's nodding. Go outside. As soon as you get back, okay, you can have a turn. I promise. See if they can deliver on that. Joni's like, whatever. Haley is so disappointed. She's like, it's Joni's Nintendo anyway. And the girls leave. I mean, the girls are indeed dropping truth bombs here. Nothing they said is false. Cam is going to look at Gordon with determination because now that these girls are gone, she says, let's beat the game today. Come on, Donna's away. What else are we going to do? Or when else are we going to do it? So Gordon grabs the controller. Cam smiles eagerly. He's like, offer accepted. He said, let's just see how far we can get before the girls get back. That perky Super Mario Brothers music is going to continue. And then we're going to dissolve into some number of hours later or minutes later, or who knows how much time has gone by. But we dissolve into, it went from being sort of perky to they look like they're a little bit more haggard. Cam is now playing. Gordon's rubbing his eyes. They look exhausted. The Waterworld music is playing. Cam says, if we could just skip the Waterworld. I hate the Waterworld. Gordon makes fun of the game. He's like, your princess is in another castle. They're sitting so close to the TV. This really brings back some memories of playing this game. He's gonna sigh. He says, look, if we don't beat it this time, then I think we gotta call it quits for the day. Cam gets it. You can see Cam getting an idea. I mean, this is it. How many times have we done this? This is the last time we're doing it. But Cam gets an idea. We're going to watch the screen. So Mario's at that point where he can run sideways into a tunnel. That never ends well. That never gets you where you want to get. But then she has an idea because there's a little conveyor belt going upward. And so Mario's going to jump onto the conveyor belt. Mario is going to wait until he gets all the way to the top of the screen. And then he's going to jump onto the brick wall that looks like the top of the level, the top of the screen. And he's going to run along it. Oh my God, you can do that? You sure can. And so he runs past the tunnel. We get into a new screen. And Gordon's like, what are you doing? Mario keeps running, and we're going to get into a new screen that says Warp Zone. Welcome to the Warp Zone. There are tunnels marked 2, 3, and 4. They are so excited. They have not seen this before. Remember what that felt like, folks? Cam's like, whoa. Gordon says, what are you doing? She's like, yes, we did it. I found it. He's like, yes, holy shit. They're so excited. She's like, welcome to the Warp Zone. They're cheering. They're standing. It's something new, something different. They're not just trying to run into that sideways tunnel this whole time. Cam shouts, I can't believe it took me this long. She gives Gordon the control. She says, here, you go. You're better at the cloud level. She's going to sit. He's going to stand while he's working on it. He's like, okay, he's like, it's on now. It's on. He's heckling the screen. Yes. He says, come here, you spiny eternal birthing butt. She's rubbing her face. She's like, oh my God, you're doing it. Kill it. Watch out. She's coaching him through it. They're very much a team trying to do this. We're then going to hear a ringing sound to start. We've heard this sound before. It's coming from inside Gordon's head. It's that sort of tinnitus sound that we've heard. He starts to look a little off balance and he's tipping forward. Cam starts to see that. She's like, Gordon, and he falls into the TV. He sort of blocks the TV with his arms so he doesn't hit his head on it. But then he just crashes to the floor. The TV crashes to the floor. Cam jumps up terrified. She's like, Gordon, Jesus Christ. She's stepping over the TV to get to him. We have seen Gordon fall like this before and stay unconscious for just a little bit longer or be sort of knocked out for a little bit longer. He wakes up right away. And she's trying to help him up. And she's like, Gordon. He says, yeah, I'm fine. There's static on the TV. She says, what the hell just happened? He stands up. He's a little bit wobbly. He's like, I'm fine. I just need to eat something. He walks to the kitchen and he leaves Cam standing there confused and alarmed. And I would be too. I would be terrified if that just happened. And he just gets up like, no, this is a normal reaction to hunger. Like, what? She's like, what? He's, I'm fine. And so he's going to leave, but this is going to make an impression on Cam. So now we're going to see Donna walking through Diane's vacation home with groceries. Once again, the last couple of episodes in particular, I am noticing they do such a beautiful job with these sequences where we're not getting any dialogue. Sometimes they're montages, sometimes, but it's, they're doing such a great job trusting these actors to tell a story without words. And so what a cool sequence this is. Donna's in Diane's vacation home, which is beautiful. What a big open spaces. Donna walks through Diane's. There's like an open dining room to sort of kitchen table / seating area, with a beautiful like window that you can look out and see the view beyond it. She's carrying groceries through this space. We're hearing a song called L'Elisir d'amore, quanto è bella, quanto è cara. It's playing throughout this whole sequence. And then she's going to be amazed by the dining room, amazed by this sort of living room, kitchen table area, breakfast nook. I don't know if you could call it a nook, really. She's going to start checking out Diane's pictures, her family photos with her daughter. Donna smiling at those. She's going to open the double doors of a walk-in closet and fall in love. Her mouth drops open. She picks up a perfume bottle from a gorgeous tray full of perfume bottles. She smells it. She checks out Diane's meds. There's a Valium and she looks at a Dexedrine prescription bottle. She touches the clothes. Donna's very sensory in this episode, very much tactile and feeling the things in Diane's home. So she's touching the clothes. The fabrics are just exquisite to her. She stands in the closet amongst the clothes and puts a sweater around her so she just can feel all of the clothes at the same time. She's then going to disrobe in front of a large window in that closet, and she's going to put on Diane's robe. And then she turns to the camera wearing the robe. She just chuckles. She laughs to herself. It's kind of adorable, actually. She's playing dress up with Diane's clothes. I mean, think about this. So earlier in this episode, Joe gives Ryan the macaroni tailoring card and outfits Ryan with a suit from his tailor. And now we've got Donna literally wearing Diane's clothes. So it's beyond the walk a mile in your shoes sort of a thing. We're seeing these mentoring relationships, and we're seeing the parallels where they're even dressing like or dressing as the mentor. So I like that we have both of those things happening in this episode. Okay, whatever happened with Gordon and Cam? Well, Gordon and Cam now push a new TV into the house. It's a big one. It's one of those Sony KP rear projection models. Shake the Hippie is playing as the music underpinning this scene. It's going to bring a real energy into this scene. Gordon's pulling, Cam's pushing. He's like, push. He's like, I am pushing. He's cutting open the box. They're pulling the TV out of the box, and Gordon loses his balance in a good way and falls, in a good way, and not as horrible a way as before, and falls backwards. They're setting up this Sony KP rear projection TV. Just as a note on this, I've seen this TV once before. There's another show that I like that I actually did an audio only podcast for with my really close college friend Fish. the show Felicity. And there is an episode in that show where a couple of I'm not going to spoil things, a couple of the characters get an apartment, and one of them, the guy, hates the apartment and wants to send a subtle suggestion that maybe this isn't the right place. So he gets a connection to fill up the entire tiny studio apartment in New York with this exact TV. That show is set from 98 to 2002, and I think this was around 2001. So I remember looking at that TV, never having seen a TV like that before. And in that apartment, it stuck out like a sore thumb. It was huge. It filled up half the apartment. And I remember thinking, what is that? Is it like a TV sitting on a like a dishwasher? It's such a specific looking thing. And then one of my eagle-eyed listeners on that podcast actually found us what model it was, which was amazing. I don't know how she did that, but it's so funny to see that in this show too. Two of my favorite shows have this exact strange TV. Was this really popular in the 80s? Because I don't remember anybody having a TV like this. But this is a cool thing because they actually show you the other side of the TV, which I had never seen before. So we're going to watch as Cam and Gordon are setting this up, and they're hooking the Nintendo back up onto it, and then they're going to turn on the screen, and we get a moment where we get to see the rear projection part of the TV. And it's really cool with all like the different dials and lenses and the lights, the different colored lights. There's like a different lens for each color that's projecting onto the TV. Really neat. Kind of wish I could have seen this up close in person. Okay, so they're going to turn on the TV, and now Super Mario Brothers is on screen again. So they had a little detour, but they're back to the game. So Gordon's like, all right, he gets the controller. He starts setting up the game. And now that this part's done, Cam is sitting next to the TV, watching him with the controller, and she says, I'm not buying it. He freezes and he looks at her. And once again, it's like he's busted. He kind of knows that he needs to reveal this. She says, the blood sugar excuse, not buying it. He brings the controller down, and he knows he needs to tell her. He says, it's neurological. Her eyes go wide. She straightens up a little bit. She's like, okay, I'm ready to hear this. Gordon says, I've been dealing with it for about a year. They found very small areas of atrophy, so technically it's degenerative, but Cam is going to stand up. She's like, Jesus Christ, so you're dying? I mean, she does not mince words. In some ways, Cam has the innocence of a child. She'll just say what's on her mind. Gordon's like, no, well, I mean, we're all dying. Just sort of taking this in. He's like, but it's under control. I'm taking medication, and most days I'm fine. Other days, Cam says, you pile drive a Zenith. Gordon laughs. He says, no, that was a first. And he says that like, yeah, that was sort of cause for alarm right there. Cam is going to keep watching him. Her eyes are just glued to him in a very sort of concerned, protective way. She says, Donna knows. He nods. She nods. She says, who else? And he doesn't really indicate in any way, but it's very clear that nobody else knows. He hands her the controller. She's going to take it and start to play. I'm so glad somebody else knows about this. And especially if Cam's been living with them. I think the adults in the house should be aware of what's happening here with Gordon, especially if he's going to do things like this. In a way, like we saw the earthquake earlier this season, and we saw that Cam sort of left Joni high and dry. Like Donna and Gordon protected Haley to whatever extent they could and comforted her, but Cam is the one who needed more comfort. Cam sort of overshadowed Joni and was like a third kid in that situation. And I think that giving Cam this information, who knows? Maybe down the road, she needs to protect Joni and Haley in some way because of this information. But if you just spring it on her, she can't brace herself for that. So I'm very glad that she has this information now. She and Gordon have been getting closer. I've really been enjoying their buddy moments. I love this friendship. And I think I just feel how close Cam and Gordon are getting in this episode, and I love it. Okay, we're going to get a close up on that string map on the corkboard in Joe's apartment. Ryan is putting up some string. Joe is working from the floor in the living room, working on the coffee table. Joe says, "Where are the router configurations for the existing fuzzballs?" I mean, it's one of those lines, no idea what that means. I'm rolling with it. Ryan says, "They should be in the binder with the rest of the UCSD research." Joe says, "Okay." Phone's going to ring. He answers it. Says, "Yeah, this is Joe." "Oh, hey, Mitch." Ryan gets attentive. Joe says, "Didn't expect to hear from you on a Saturday." Ryan and Joe are working together like every day of the week on this thing. Ryan walks over eagerly. Joe says, "Is everything all right?" And he looks at Ryan. He sort of pumps his fist. And Ryan has learned, feel your emotions, but don't do it in a way that kills the deal. So Ryan sort of jumps and he throws his arms into the air silently. And then he does it a couple times. And then, so they're celebrating a little bit, but Joe's continuing the conversation. He says, "Well, that's great news. I assure you the feeling is mutual. Mitch, we should hire you to run PR." Ryan is amazed, just wiping his face. Is this real? Joe says, "Yeah, so hey, listen, messenger over the paperwork on Monday and I'll have my lawyers go through it ASAP. Yep, we'll be talking." Joe hangs up and Ryan runs in for a hug, not stopping until he makes contact with Joe. Ryan just runs in for a hug. Joe's like, "Oh," and he sort of pats him on the back. It's like, "Hey, congrats, you made it on the train." Remember when Ryan was like, "The train's taking off. I don't want to miss the train." Joe says, "You made it on the train." Ryan's like, "Yeah." And he looks so satisfied with himself. And Joe says, "Okay, where's that UCSD binder?" Ryan's like, "We should celebrate." "What's happening? Why are you getting back to work?" Joe says, "Celebrate. That bid they just approved is half fiction. Now we make it real." He opens up a book. Ryan's just standing there agape. Joe's like, "Come on, let's get to it." Ryan is like, "But Joe, right now, it's perfect." I like not only that Ryan is so new to these moments that he's like, "I'm not letting this moment pass me by. Let's stop and smell the roses. Let's do it together." But I also like that this echoes what Joe said when they were in the completely empty mainframe room. In that moment, Joe thought it was perfect. In that moment, Joe was like, this is before anybody messes with the idea, where the idea is unsullied. It's still like perfect as it was. Ryan's saying, "It's perfect now." Like, we did all this work, we got everything set up, and people are on board. People are saying yes. More people than just us are enthusiastic about it. So I like that they've sort of defined different moments as being perfect here. But yeah, he leans in. He wants Joe to appreciate this moment with him. And Joe sees that energy. And I think he realizes, oh yeah, this is the kind of thing that you celebrate. He smiles. He drops the book he was holding. He says, "Have you ever had 30-year-old scotch?" Ryan just laughs a little bit. Yay, I get to celebrate with Joe McMillan. These two. That hug melts my heart. Ryan coming in with that kind of enthusiasm. First of all, who's hugged Joe like that in this series? Has Joe ever had like a platonic embrace like this from somebody who deeply admires him, who has not Ryan has not one bad thing to say about Joe. Who does Joe have that with? Like, Joe has learned from and grown into Joe, and he's become a teammate with Joe, and they've collaborated on this idea. They're partners together, but Joe is definitely the more senior person here, and Ryan has respect for that. And who did Ryan really respect before? Who listened to Ryan before? Who was the Ryan whisperer in the way that Joe is a Ryan whisperer? Because Joe has pushed back on Ryan. Like, Ryan, you're not seeing the ideas. Let's find the ideas in what you're presenting. And Ryan's just so proud, and this feels so wholesome for Joe right now. I can't think of a wholesome situation Joe has had in the past. And this is just like, thank goodness Joe gets to have this. And thank goodness Ryan gets to have this. And this just feels like they're at this amazing peak. They've both identified this is perfect at different points in this episode. Where we go from here, well, we're going to have to see. But I think like these two together right now, I just love them together. All right, we're going to see Donna in Diane's tub. She's relaxing. She hears somebody enter the house. Is somebody breaking in? She's going to come down the stairs. She's in Diane's robe. She's carrying a trophy as a weapon. Think about that for a second. My goodness, success is your best weapon. The front door is ajar. Uh-oh. Diane's daughter, it turns out, is inside the house. She's like, hello? Donna's like, oh my God. Donna shuts the door. She says, oh, you're Diane's daughter. She gestures to the photos that she had seen. She recognizes Diane's daughter. She says, I'm Donna Clark. I work with your mom. She's sort of tightening the robe around her. Kimberly, Diane's daughter, is going to introduce herself. She says, oh, hi, sorry. It's all very awkward. They're awkwardly handshaking. She says, yes, I'm Kimberly. Caitlin McGee plays Kimberly here. Caitlin McGee absolutely is the daughter of Diane Gould. Look at these. Like, think about Diane and think about Kimberly and ask me if they are not a real life mother and daughter. I cannot believe it. Not only in how they look and how they've sort of dressed them up, but also mannerisms. It seems to me like Kimberly has like a Diane-esque way of speaking. You can see the influence there. And then two guys are going to come in. And Travis, her boyfriend, says, Kimmy, is everything okay? She says, oh, I'm fine. This is Donna. She works with my mom. This is my boyfriend, Travis. They exchange haze. Kimberly says, and his roommate, Rob. Rob is going to come over and actually shake Donna's hand. I keep mixing up Donna and Diane's names here. Rob says hi. Travis says hello. Kimberly is like, is that my mom's sweater? So I guess it's a sweater, but it looks like a robe. Donna says, I was just in the bath. I'm sorry. I can go to a hotel. Kimberly says, no. We just decided to drive up from Berkeley today. We can totally drive back, which the guys clearly don't want to do. By the way, blast from the past for Donna that, she's with people who are from Berkeley. Donna says, no, don't do that. Kimberly says, no, it's fine. I'm supposed to ask before I come here anyway. Travis really wants to say something. He does not want to leave, but he doesn't say anything. Donna is like, look, it's a huge house. I brought more food than I can possibly eat. So what about this? I don't tell your mom I saw you, and we keep it between us that I was trying on her clothes. Yeah. Kimberly likes the steal. Everybody's happy. Everybody gets to stay. All right. Super Mario Brothers music is still playing. Cam and Gordon are zoned in on the game. Gordon is playing. Gordon has obviously, now that they're getting personal and revealing things, the floodgates are starting to open for these two. Gordon is revealing more. He's obviously been telling the story about what happened with Joe and the antivirus software. So we miss the part where he tells her, but we get Cam saying, that's insane. He says, I know. She says, did you consider it? this idea of partnering with Joe. Gordon says, sort of, I mean, it was 70% of a fortune. Kim says, well, souls don't come cheap. I don't understand how you're so good at the underwater level. Like they're sort of doing they're multitasking here, having a serious conversation and playing Super Mario Brothers, as you do. Gordon says, well, it's a gift. He makes it into the tunnel. He says, I don't even really care about the money. I just want him to admit what he did. Kim's like, yeah. Gordon hands her the controller. He says, all right, you can do this. She's okay. He says, I believe in you. So there on the screen, we see that they're in World 8-4. World 8-4 is the fourth and final level of World 8. So that's how long they've been playing. And Gordon says, I wish I could pelt Joe with a fireball. Because we're going to see that Mario is fighting Bowser, the boss, the big boss, at the end of World 8. So Kim's like, shh, she needs to focus. She's doing it though. And Gordon starts to get excited. He stands up and he's like, oh, and she's like, shh, don't mess with this. And you can see she's winning. She gets past Bowser. She gets to the other side of Bowser. The floor falls out, crumbles, and he falls down into the lava. They won. And she's like, yeah, finally. Gordon's like, yeah, she's like, victory. And they're holding hands and they're jumping and they're smiling. They're full energy. If you find one GIF from this, or GIF, whatever you say, if you find one from this, it's probably this one. These two, so excited. Jumping up and down, pure happiness. Now we see we see all of this from watching the front of them, and then the camera goes around behind them so that we can see them excited together, standing together, watching the screen. And then the screen close-up says, thank you, Mario, your quest is over. We present you a new quest. Push button B to select a world. They were not expecting another world. They thought they just won the entire game. They're like, Gordon says, want to see something cool? She says, yep. And they leave the room. Such a good button on that scene. Oh my God. Oh, I love the scene. Okay. What's the cool thing he's going to show her? Ham radio. This is a very personal, now that Kim knows about his illness, again, the floodgates are open. He's just going to do all of these reveals. So he's going to take her into this ham radio room. And he's explaining it to her. He says, the radio spectrum is like a long measuring tape. She says, And he says, the AM band's the low frequency. He's pointing to different parts of the radio. He says, it's down here on the bottom. And the FM is way up here on the top. She's smiling. He's like, you follow? She says, man, Gordon, I got to be honest. I didn't know what you were doing in here, but this is pretty rad. And he says, you really think so? I mean, it's kind of silly. He's being a little protective of himself. She says, no, I mean it. I think it's cool. He says, well, I wish Donna shared your enthusiasm. Kim's like, yep. Gordon says, I hope you realize what a rare thing you've done. She says, He says, you and Donna, I mean, you guys built something real. Kim's considering that. She says, yeah, so did you. She's on terrible terms with Donna right now. And had he not just revealed everything he's revealed to her, particularly his illness, she might be pushing back on the situation with Donna. But she's taking it in because Gordon she's really feeling for Gordon right now. She's feeling deeply connected to Gordon. And him saying, and then to follow that up with a story about how Joe has stolen his idea, for him to be saying, you two have done something amazing. She's going to jump in and say, yeah, so did you. Gordon says, oh, please, you don't have to do that. I built a couple machines no one will remember, and a piece of software everybody thinks is Joe's. Cam's taking this in. I'm taking this in. Can you imagine feeling like that's your legacy? When you really look at the things he's done, that's what he thinks his legacy is. He says, enough about that jackass. Let's fire this thing up. Cam has a concerned look. She just does not like that her friend is feeling this way. The ham's not working. Of all the times for the ham not to be working. He says, that's weird. I was just talking on it last night. Maybe there's a loose connection. Cam reaches under the table and she holds up the power cord and it is not plugged in. She says, oh, you sure about that? Here, she plugs it in. Fire it up. He turns it on and we get static. He's like, and he says, CQ, trying to find people. Guys, I don't think this ham radio was ever plugged in. I don't think it fell out. I think it was never plugged in. And I think that he's been talking to nobody. Like there was that episode where he had an entire conversation with somebody. And I don't think that person was there. And it's ambiguous, right? You can tell me if you think that there was somebody there, that this cord got knocked out and you know, he has been talking to people. I totally appreciate that viewpoint. Feel free to share that here. I just feel it makes me feel like I felt when he fell down the stairs last season in the garage. Like it's hard to look at these things. Like I think he's been inventing these conversations in his head. It makes me upset. In fact, there was an interview that I did at the ATX festival with the Christophers, with Chris Cantwell and Chris Rogers. And Chris Cantwell made a comment where he was like, Gordon is talking to people who may not really be there. And even in how he phrased it, there was ambiguity. But I think he's been talking to nobody and it makes me upset. So, okay, moving on from that, let's go to the opera. Turandot or Turando, however you like to say it. It's the intermission and Boz is at the bar trying to get the attention of the most unfriendly, most inattentive bartender of all time. It's this older woman who kind of waddles to get everywhere. And he's like, hey there, could I just get 2 fingers of something brown back here? She kind of waddles away. He's like, did you hear? Diane's gonna come over. Diane's there too. Look at that. Funny that they should both be at the same opera. She says, could we just pretend that you were holding a place in line for me? He says, oh, look who it is. Bartender comes back with 2 fingers of something brown. He says, oh, this young lady will have a gin and tonic with lime, please. The bartender turns back around completely unimpressed. She waddles back to get gin and tonic. He chuckles a bit. Diane says, are you here with somebody? He says, nope, flying solo. What can I say? Me and Puccini go way back. You? Diane sort of looks in somebody's direction. She says, it's a blind date. He's a friend of a banker or something. I forgot how I ended up here. The bartender waddles back again with a drink for Diane. Boz is going to pay for both. And he says, I've enjoyed our time together, Doris. Gracias. Diane's like, well, thank you for saving me. He says, you don't strike me much like a woman needs saving. They hold each other's gaze for a moment, an extra moment longer than you might normally. The lights flicker as they do when the folks at the opera are telling you to get back to your seats. Boz says, hey, listen, there's a bar I pass on the way here. It looks like a good time. Diane's sort of staying strong with this because remember, she was giving him a lot of signals in the last episode and he was not taking her up on them. And so he's making a move now and she's just sort of waiting for him to actually say something that will get them there. He says, we can get another cocktail after the show. She considers that. She looks back at her date. She doesn't consider it long, tell you that much. She says, give me 2 minutes. I'll meet you outside. She goes to get rid of her date and Boz says to the bartender, here's to me, Doris. And he holds up his drink. It's so good. That Diane and Boz. Fireworks, okay? Okay, Cam is typing and she's listening to music on the headphones. What's she typing? Well, of course, she's having a private chat with T. Rendon. He says, hey, she says, hey. He's like, you okay? Kim Howe says, things are so messed up with Donna right now. He says, I know, it'll get better though. She says, how do you know? It could be shitty forever. He says, well, I'll be there soon. Oh. He says, have you told anybody yet? Doesn't he know her so well? She's going to reach under the keyboard and she's going to grab her wedding band, which apparently she has been hiding under the keyboard. She puts it on. She admires it. T. Rendon writes, Cam, you still there? She's rubbing the ring, but she doesn't answer. How the hell does he know she's not okay? Is this just like they're talking outside of their normal time of talking, maybe? But yeah, he's gonna be here soon, so he's coming, but she still hasn't said anything to anybody. And he kind of knows that she keeps things quiet like this. What is going on with this marriage? Okay. What's happening at Diane's vacation home? Well, Donna is currently drinking wine. Kimberly's drinking tea. The guys are drinking some beers and playing pool. Donna and Kimberly are sitting on a couch having a chat. Kimberly is absolutely enraptured by a story that Donna is telling. Kimberly looks so 80s. I love how they dressed her for this. She's got the off the shoulder sweatshirt and the big half up do. Yeah. I feel like she's like straight out of like a photo shoot from the Tiffany album or something. It's so good. Okay, so Donna's like, but of course he's nowhere to be found. And of course the emergency exit locks behind me. So I'm totally naked, super drunk with this alarm blaring. And he and my coat are at a different door, but I didn't know that. Kimberly's laughing. She's very impressed with the story. I was like, so I ran all the way back to my dorm, ducking behind bushes like some cartoon spy. Thank God it was finals week and no one was around. A funny little story about how Gordon wasn't really there for her. Kimberly says, I hope you broke up with him. I was like, I married him actually. Kimberly goes, oh no, and she laughs. She's like, can't believe you actually work at AGG. What an interesting conversation we have between two women, sort of different generations and their experiences. Like, here's Donna telling this cute little story that Kimberly's kind of like, yeah, I hope you ditched that guy. Like, you can do better. So I can't believe you actually work at AGG. Donna says, no, your mom's an investor in my company. It's an online service called Mutiny. This gets Rob's attention. Rob's all ears now. He's like, wait, you own Mutiny? She smiles. She's like, yeah, a part of it. And he says, are you Cam Howe? No, Rob, she's Donna. How did this all come apart for you, Rob? Anyway, are you Cam Howe? This is insane. I'm estimated profit. Donna says, no, Cam is my partner. He says, oh, it's like the best. He's telling everybody else. He's like, I've been looking for a tape of this June 77 Winterland show for literally years. I signed up on Mutiny and found it 20 minutes later. She's like, that's great. Kimberly says, so Donna, you and my mom should be friends. Donna's like, I think we are friends. Kimberly says, no, I mean friends. Because all my mom's got are work friends and everyone else was dads. This girl, she looks at the world around her. Donna says, well, I'm sure it took a lot of nights and weekends to build a firm with her name on the door. That couldn't have been easy. And Kimberly says, except the name's dad's too, which sucks. I just think you're fun and smart and she must really like you because she doesn't let a lot of people up here. I like Kimberly. She's so observant and like has assessed the world around her. And it's not unlike Diane, to be honest. Except the name's dad's too. I think Kimberly has some opinions about how things went down. Yeah. Gosh. So Donna says, well, I like her too. She puts down her wine and she mischievously looks up at the guys. She's like, hey, do you have any of that pot left? And Kimberly laughs. The guys like this. They like Donna. Rob says, yeah, but I was like, what? He says, if you're maybe looking for a different sort of adventure, and he's going to hold a bag of shrooms. And she looks at it excited. Oh, she's going to partake. All right. In other people who are partying, okay, Diane and Boz, they are at a table at a club, like a sit down, like dinner and a show type of, or drink in a show type of club. We're going to see them through the doorway. And it's a really cool shot to start it off. We're going to see them through a doorway. So, like, the sides of the frame are sort of blacked out. And we're going to see this giant brick wall, and they're sitting up against it. And there's like a spotlight shining right down on them. It's like they're the only people in the entire room, except they're not, but it feels like they are. Diane says, so I have a confession. He says, shoot. She says, I don't care much for Texas. He laughs, says, what? Why ever not? She says, isn't it just a bunch of good old boys in Dixie Trans Ams speeding down dirt roads? He says, that'd be Georgia. And the General Lee is a Charger. You've never been, I take it. She says, no, I haven't. She laughs. She takes a drink. He's taking a drink. She says, tell me about it. They are making eyes at each other, folks. All kinds of eyes. I obviously love them. Okay. I'm not afraid to say it. All right. So Boz says, well, it's like any other place, except more so. She says, really? Like this place? And we see more of the room, and it's a gay bar. Lots of young people. They're for sure the oldest people in the room. Lots of colorful shirts. All different types of couples in there. Buzz says, well, we get all kinds. Have to admit, not what I had in mind when we walked in here, but glad we did. Buzz recommended this place. This was the bar that he had seen. She says, so you still have family there, yeah? Buzz, any opportunity to talk about little Sam, okay? He pulls his wallet out. He pulls out a picture from his wallet, and he's like, here, that little feller. He's so proud. He's so proud of Sam. They're like, oh my God, he is beautiful. He says, yeah, it's a hell of a thing, ain't it? She says, God, it feels like it was just a few days ago that I was braiding Kim's hair. And now she has 1 year left at Berkeley. Everybody says it passes so fast. I don't know. Working as much as I do, I missed a lot. It's weird because does Diane have 2 kids? She has a kid about Joni's age. She's got Kimberly. Why not mention both of them here? Well, we've seen Kimberly in this episode, right? So there's that. Okay. She says just a few days ago that I was braiding Kim's hair. Now she has 1 year left at Berkeley. Everybody says it passes so fast. I don't know. Working as much as I do, I missed a lot. Boss says, yeah, you and me both. I thought I was going to retire in Texas, be around. I'd take little Sam to a ball game a couple times a month. Diane's putting a little straw in her mouth, chewing on it. He says, I wanted to be able to tell him I did things that mattered. Now I got stories no one cares about. He's a little mournful. He says, foolish things coming from a man my age. Apologies. She's listening to it all. She's taking it all in. She says, no, not at all. She holds his hand. Physical contact. They smile at each other. There's going to be more physical contact. Okay, so the MC says, gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Lady Divine. Everybody claps. Yeah, that's right. Welcome, Lady Divine, shall we? Okay, I don't know how I just made that innuendo, but here we are. Okay. I mean, so many of these characters are just having these like deeper revelatory moments between them. All right. Cam is going to open the closet door to find Gordon on the ham radio. She says, Gordon? He says, oh, hey, I didn't wake you, did I? She says, no, I'm just heading out. He's going to nod. She says, okay, good night. She starts to go. He says, hey, Cam? She says, yeah. He says in a very genuine way, it was really fun today. She says, yeah, it was. And she looks like she's going to say something to him, but then she decides against it. She says, bye, Gordon. And she leaves, and he looks down at the ham radio with a little bit of a frown, because what was that? What was she gonna say? Like, there's just something very withholding about what just happened there. And I think he feels that. Okay, so now we're going to get another really impressive sequence of just like wordless, until there are words. There's a bunch happening here that we're just watching Donna live. Donna's going to wash her hands. She's going to look into the mirror of this big bathroom. Like, there's this whole wall on the side with nothing occupying it. And she's just looking into a mirror on the side of the frame. And we've got Mercy Street by Peter Gabriel starting to play. She walks through the backyard and she's going to walk past a pool and this beautiful stone structure. It's this outdoor sort of covered sitting area. I don't know what to call it. Maybe you do. It's gorgeous. She's now going to walk further into the yard. She's walking on the grass. She's admiring the view. She sits down. She's rubbing her hands in the grass. She lays back. She's stroking the grass with her hands. She's so tactile, particularly here at Diane's place. It's like she wants to touch and feel everything that Diane has ever experienced. She's going to stare up, and then we're going to see Cam come. She's standing over Donna. Cam. Donna says, you came. Cam says, I figured we should talk. Donna's going to sit up. She's barefoot in the grass. She's just sort of sitting with her legs crossed. She pats the ground next to her. She says, come sit with me. Cam kneels down next to her. She says, I don't like this. I don't like feeling this way. Donna says, I hate it too. I don't know how we got here. Cam says, you lied to me, Donna. Donna says, I know, but it didn't feel like a lie at the time. It felt like what was best for the company, like what was best for you. I'm just as good at this as you are. Cam says, no one ever said you weren't. Donna says, they don't have to say it. It's there all the time. It's deafening. Cam is the genius. Donna is the mom. Cam says, so we're back where we started. Donna says, no, not yet. I mean, look at this place. Did you ever think we'd be here? She lays back. Cam does too. They look at each other. Cam says, how many times do you need to hear that I can't do this without you? Donna says, I'm sorry that I lied to you. Cam says, I forgive you. Donna looks up. The camera pushes in on Donna. It rotates. The world is spinning. The camera pulls away again. Cam's not there. She imagined all of that. Because frankly, that is the best possible scenario for how that conversation would go. That's all the things that she wanted to say. It's her shroom-induced role play therapeutically. Just so you know, for those who didn't get to go to the ATX festival, it's been a few weeks since I've been able to check the ATX Festival's YouTube account. So I'm not sure if they've, as I'm recording this, I'm not sure if they've posted the panel for the Halt and Catch Fire reunion yet, but they showed this scene in one of the clips. I think it's a clip that Carrie Bechet really wanted to show. And they talked about it quite a bit. They talked about the making of this scene. And I hope that you get a chance to check that out relatively soon because there was some cool stuff there. One little side note, something that you probably won't see if you're watching the panel, because they showed multiple clips. And I imagine that when they show the clips on the video of the ATX festival, they'll probably cut that part. Everybody on the stage was looking to the side and watching the clips, except for Carrie. Carrie could not watch. She could watch other people's clips, but she could not watch herself. And it was really interesting to see that. She's so like when she answers questions about this show and when she did the interview with me, all of that is how she remembers the experience. She doesn't want or need to watch it again, is the sense that I have, because she can't watch herself back. It's burned in her brain. So I just wanted to share that detail because I don't think that'll come across when you see the panel. but it's a fun little detail you should know about. Okay, we are gonna see Boz and Diane in his car fixing up the clothes because they just did it. They hooked up. Who would have expected this type of a hookup? I just wow. These two continue to surprise me. Diane's like, well, Boz is like, well, dance is not the night I was expecting. She thought I'm gonna go to the opera, and instead she went to a gay bar and hooked up with Boz. There it is. Boz says, nor I. Diane says, why don't you come back to the house for a nightcap? He nods. It looks like he wants to, but he says, it's getting a little late. I'll just drop you back at your car. Diane kind of looks down. He says, I could come by. She says, no, it's fine. He starts his car. He's putting the brakes on again. Obviously, Diane has been picking up signals from him last episode, this episode, the first episode when they met. She's been picking up enough signals from him that she feels like I'm going to go for it. And she's been pursuing him in different ways. They obviously have had a connection tonight. But he's stopping this for some reason that he's not prepared to reveal. And she is being pretty mature about that in this moment. She's disappointed that he won't come back. I don't know exactly how she's feeling, but she's also sort of knows enough to just let that sit. And she knows enough that when he was going to backpedal and say, no, I'll just go back to your house. And she's like, no. She doesn't want to push past his boundaries here. And so they are not. I don't know exactly how she feels about that, but she's not going to take him up on this second offer. Okay. Here's an interesting scene. My God. Lee Pace and Mackenzie Davis. Joe comes home to his apartment. He finds Cam waiting outside the apartment in the hallway. Cam says, you need to give Gordon credit. Joe walks up really close to her. They're face to face. Are they gonna kiss? Are they gonna what? Like, whoa, the energy. What? It's like a chaotic energy. It's like anything could happen with them this close to each other. He looks down, probably sees her ring right about now because she chose to put it on. He reaches behind her, sort of to the side of her and behind her. He unlocks his door. Looks like he could be going in for a kiss. Instead, he unlocks his door. And she's just standing there for that. She's not leaning in. She's not leaning away either, for that matter. He opens the door. He pushes it open behind her. She sort of shifts to the side or angles herself to let him walk in. And she's going to follow him and shut the door. He goes to get himself a drink. He goes over to that little bar area. She says, be pissed at me. You have every right. Just Jesus, don't take it out on Gordon. He needs this. Joe gets some glasses. He pulls a champagne bottle out of the mini fridge. She says, Joe, do right by him. Give him credit for what he built. Say something. Joe says very quietly, shall we celebrate? She says, why? He says, that's a wedding ring on your finger. It's such a quiet conversation. It's not a whisper, it's above a whisper, but it's practically a whisper. It's like, is this sexy or is this ominous or are they angry or like they're all of these things. He says, that's a wedding ring on your finger. As he says that, he freezes. He had been fixing drinks and keeping himself busy. He says, is that a wedding ring on your finger? He stops and he looks at her. Isn't it? The champagne pops and it startles Cam. He pours the champagne. She says, I came here to talk about Gordon. He says, did you? She gulps. He says, it's 1:30 in the morning. He brings her a glass of the champagne. He says, you were waiting in my hallway to talk about Gordon. we see them. There's a moment of a camera shot through like the glass of the cabinet with the reflection of other glasses and them. It's like they are glass. It's like they could break each other here. Joe says, so what's his name? She sort of shakes her head. She stays silent. He says, it doesn't matter. Could have been anyone. He's getting to her a little bit. He says, you were happy for a moment and you thought the person standing closest to you was the source. Trust me, I've been there. She takes a sip of champagne. He watches her. She takes a step toward Joe. Once again, are they going to kiss? Are they going to fight? Are they going to, like, what's going to happen here? She puts the champagne glass down on the like countertop where the bar is. She says, you need to give Gordon credit. She turns and she walks out. The door shuts and he stands there staring. Oh, what on earth is happening here? I feel like this is a scene that 10 people could watch it and 10 people could come away with 10 different thoughts about this scene. Please share yours. Okay, I mean, can I try to interpret it? I can try. There's so much ambiguity here. There's an energy, there's a chemistry, there's but on the face of it, Cam just learned about Gordon's illness. Cam had this day with Gordon where Gordon was revealing his deepest, darkest secrets and moments and his innermost thoughts and his deepest pains in life. And one of them, in addition to her knowing that he's declining, the next thought that he shared was that I just wish Joe would give me credit. And this is like a thing a friend can do for another friend. Would she have come to see Joe if not for this? Not right now, I don't think, because otherwise, why not earlier? This finally prompts her to go to see Joe. They've seen each other at the college. But again, weird energy there. So here, she's on the face of it, she's here and she's there to speak up on Gordon's behalf. But it is 1:30 in the morning. And she specifically put on the ring that she had been hiding to go see him. And she came to him in the middle of the night. What is she doing? She's married to Tom, who is not there yet. He's coming. She hasn't told anybody about that relationship yet. She's been hiding her ring. Joe is the very first person she tells. Not because she told him, but because she made it a really easy signal for him to pick up. But why come to him at 1:30 a.m.? Why not wait until the next day to have a conversation with Joe? What is she looking for here? You know, like, I think if he had been interested to hook up with her that she would have? I don't know that she was going to do that. But there is an undeniable energy between them. And does she feel like he's the safest person to tell? Like, he's the only person that's in her world that doesn't have like a vested business interest in her right now. So maybe she's testing those waters. Does she want some sort of a tryst? I feel like she would have gone further with him. She would have initiated something with him if she did. What is happening? I'm sitting here trying to parse this scene out, and I feel like I need feedback. What are we gathering from it? Because it's so, and I think it's beautifully done because it's going to take some serious thought. And there's so much underpinning this. The actors in this scene put so much under it. It is very quiet. This is very tenuous. And I think she was willing to sort of go into the lion's den, what she would perceive as the lion's den. Because when they saw each other at that college, she was not buying him for a second. She's like, yeah, sure, you're a student. I bet you are. Like, she wasn't buying it. She's like, I think you're buying it, but I'm not. So she's willing to sort of put herself back into this situation with him on Gordon's behalf. But damn, Cam, like, wait till the next day at noon or something. I mean, it's a confusing message for Joe, I would say, for sure. How would Tom feel about the fact that she's here at 1:30 a.m.? Probably not great. I don't know. I think also, what stopped her way back in the day from saying I love you to Tom? You know, she has a hard time opening herself up. Maybe here's another theory too, like she's having a hard time with Donna. Gordon tells her this, devastating news today. She wants to do something for him, but there's also not exactly a place she can go for physical comfort right now, or like really any like in-person comfort. Tom's still not there. So maybe, in the context of a really hard episode where she's got this fight happening with Donna, there's this hard stuff happening with Gordon, she's fighting with Boz. Maybe Joe's the only person left to comfort her in some way, and we know she needs external comfort. Joe is not giving that to her, because why would Joe give that to her right now? So I don't know, maybe that's some of what's happening here, but I will love to hear your takes on this episode and on this scene in particular, because man, the acting in this show, these people, I care so much about these people. I feel like every scene, I'm like, this is another amazing scene. Okay. We are now going to see the Clark house. Joni is playing Mario Brothers. Finally, Haley has turned the TV box into a fort. Donna comes in. She comes home and she's going to call out, hello, I'm home. She sees the new TV. Like, why do we have a new TV? Haley says, mommy, mommy. Donna's like, hi, what's all this? Looking at the TV. Haley's in a tutu and she's going to parrot the story she's been told. Cameron broke the TV, so daddy bought a new one. That is the either agreed messaging or what Gordon has said to protect the situation, to protect his kids. Gordon comes in wiping his hands on a towel and Haley's like, isn't it so big, the TV? And Donna's like, yeah, sure is, baby. Gordon says, hey, how was it? Donna says, it was great, really great. I feel clearer. Joni's drinking a Capri Sun again. Donna's like, hey, how many of those have you had? Joni's like, only this one. Well, it depends on what day you're talking about. Is that truth or is that lies, Joni? Donna says, she broke the TV, huh? Gordon says, yeah, long story. Donna says, okay, is she home? Gordon says, well, she went out late and I didn't hear her come in. They walk toward her room. Donna says, Cameron. She's going to call the Cam. She doesn't hear a response. Gordon says, hold up, Donna. She could be asleep. And Donna knocks on the door. She says, Cam. And she opens the door. They go into the room. The room is empty. The beds are stripped. There are sheets stacked on it. And Cam's red phone is in the room, but she is not, and her stuff is not. And they're like, oh my God, they're stunned. She left. She just left. We're going to see Gordon go to the closet. We're going to get some static from the ham radio. Gordon tapes the plug into the wall so it won't fall out this time. I don't think it fell out to begin with. Cam's voice comes on over the ham radio. She says, Gordon. He jumps up. He's surprised. He hits his head on the underside of the desk. He says, ow, Cameron? She says, it works. He says, you weren't in the office today. She says, yeah, well, I needed a day to put this thing together. Gordon says, why didn't you tell us you moved out? She pauses. She isn't really sure what to say. And then she announces to him, I got married. He laughs. She says, no, I'm serious. I got married to Tom back in Texas. He says, wow, that's incredible. I'm really happy for you. She smiles. She says, thanks. I'm happy too. She smiles, but she kind of looks like she could cry. She's kneeling on the floor at her ham radio in a house without furniture. Is this the house that the real estate agent showed her and Donna in the previous episode? I think it might be the same house. Like I'm pretty sure it is. So she says she's happy. She doesn't look that happy. She's had a week, that's for sure. And by the way, going back to the scene with her and Joe, for him to say, yeah, you think you're happy, but you're really not. This is just a band-aid. Oh, who'd you get married to? Doesn't matter. They just were the person that made you think you were happy for a second. I mean, my goodness, what a damning thing to say to somebody. And is he saying it to get in her head and to hurt her? I don't know that he is. I think he just sort of knows her and he knows him and he knows that he's done this and she might. And I mean, that probably does get in her head whether he intended that to or not. And so now she's telling the second person, maybe she'll get a better response. All right, so we're going to go see Joe at a conference table. He sighs, he checks his watch. There's some equipment for the deposition out on the table with him. Ken comes in. Joe says, I didn't know you were going to be in this thing today. Ken says, I'm not. I postponed the depo. We need to talk. Joe says, have a seat. Ken says, no purchases and no promises. That's what we said. He clears his throat. He says, this morning I got a copy of a fax from the NSFnet lawyers that came across my desk. Joe leans back in his chair. He says, so when I called Mitch Clouden for clarification, he said that the two of you had a lovely conversation this weekend that we're now in business. He laughs a little bit and he says, it's like not a good laugh. It's like, yeah, we're in business with him, huh? Joe says, come on, Ken, just sit down. Ken says, you're done. I gathered the board this morning and we voted to remove your executive authority and kill the NSFnet deal. Joe sits up, horrified. He's like, Ken. Ken says, of course, you're more than welcome to quit, but we plan to enforce the 4-year non-compete. 4-year non-compete. Joe is stunned. Ken says, so if I was you, I'd just keep showing up for work, Mr. McMillan. Just sit up in that office of yours like Buddha on the goddamn mountain, dispensing pearls of nonsense to the tech press. But you'll never spend another McMillan utility dime, launch another project, or give another order. And before you even dream about running a fire hose into the bullpen or some other such bullshit, I would meditate on the Joe McMillan clause our lawyers had such fun drawing up. One destructive move from you and every point of equity you got goes up in smoke. Joe looks trapped. Ken walks to the door and he says, let me know what you decide. And he leaves. They have a Joe McMillan clause because Joe has that much of a pattern that people have realized this guy will come in, build a thing, and then burn it to the ground. And we are going to protect ourselves against that. So people have started to figure out that he's doing that. And the people, Ken and the people on this team, the board, they were savvy enough to protect themselves against Joe while trying to serve him for as long as they could. Joe's crossed the line. He's reached what they think of as the point of no return. And that's it. They're pulling his authority. The camera fixes on, this is really an interesting camera move here. The camera fixes in on Joe's face, then it sort of pulls out. And then we're going to see that there was some deposition equipment there already. We're going to then see Joe and Joe in the monitor. And in that moment where the camera like pushes in on the monitor and just shows us Joe's face looking straight down the barrel, I think that's where an editing blend happened, because then when the camera pulls back out, we see a bunch of people, lawyers and such, in the room too. A lawyer says, state your name. He says, Joe McMillan. The lawyer says, and your title and the place of business, please. He says, founding CEO, McMillan Utility. The lawyer says, and in your capacity as CEO, do you often review outside submissions for software ideas? Joe says, no, never. The lawyer says, all product development is done in-house then? Joe's kind of lost in thought. He says, yeah. The lawyer says, okay, walk me through that process, please. Joe is thinking. He's trying to figure out how to get out of the situation. And he's thinking about what Cam said, and an opportunity has apparently presented itself. The lawyer says, Mr. McMillan. Joe says, I stole it. The lawyer says, what? Joe's lawyer says, turn that off, turn it off. Joe says, don't. He looks right into the camera. And you are looking at him on the monitor, and he says, I, Joe McMillan, stole the code to the security software from Gordon Clark. Everything this company is built on is his. Well, that's a way to get around the Joe McMillan clause, isn't it? Is he doing this because Cam said it was the right thing? Is he doing this because he thinks it's the right thing? Or is he doing this because he needs to get around the Joe McMillan clause? Guess we'll have to find out. What an episode, folks. And there's a bunch of feedback that I want to dig into some of the things that I'm thinking about this, but give you all a chance to talk too. I am just so loving the middle of this season where we've got all these really rich relationships and dynamics between people, and we're living in them now. We're getting to see them sort of bloom and develop. And that's the stuff that I love. But first, let's talk about the music here. Of course, we have Jockey Full of Bourbon by Tom Waits from 1985. That was the montage of Ryan being Joe's protege. Again, don't really understand most of the lyrics, but there was the one lyric that I really like. We've also got L'Elixir d'amore, Quanto è bella, quanto è cara by Antonello Gota, Stefano Secco, and the Compagnia d'Opera Italiana Orchestra. That is the song that's playing for that whole sequence where Donna is walking through Diane's vacation home. Got Shake the Hippie by 39 Clocks from 1981. This is when Cam and Gordon set up a new TV. And then we've got Mercy Street by Peter Gabriel from 1986. And that's when Donna is on mushrooms at Donna's place. I keep doing this. Donna is on shrooms at Diane's place, talking to Cam. Okay, my favorite quote. There were some really fun short ones here. So I've got a bunch of honorable mentions. We've got Souls Don't Come Cheap from Cam. We've got Here's to Me, Doris from Boz. And we've got Boz's description of Texas, which is, well, it's like any other place, except more so. Okay. You've got one from Donna. It didn't feel like a lie at the time. It felt like what was best for the company, like what was best for you. I guarantee, Donna, that would not have resulted in an actual makeup if Cam had really been there. That would not have been an appropriate apology for Cam. But it was a good line. And the quote of the episode for me is from Joe. You were happy for a moment and you thought the person standing closest to you was the source. Joe could be speaking to so many of us. He was speaking to Cam, but he could be speaking to so many of us. Okay. Let's get into some feedback because I've got a bunch of feedback, some of it way from the past, but as always, I love to pull in past feedback from previous seasons that feels relevant to the moment. So I'd like to start with a comment from Frackin' Toaster Lava from season 2, episode 1. And it's really reflecting on how Joe's season 2 journey parallels Cam's in season 3. Now, remember, I've said like Tom is Cam a season ago, Cam is Joe a season, like it just seems like there's sort of this, we're just sort of like following a chain of what you do in these positions. So Frackin' Toaster Lover says, the first time I watched this episode, I shouted when I saw Joe propose to Sarah. It has forced and fake, and he is lying to himself written all over it. This is the same man who never managed to tell Cameron he loved her, though he obviously did, who froze a decade before when Simon told him he loved him and could not say it back. Of course, he has not quickly changed because he found the right person, but he wants to think that desperately. So if we think about sort of like okay, how is Cam following in those footsteps now? I think she absolutely is. Look, we didn't even get to see the proposal between Tom and Cam. But I don't know that Cam is in a particularly balanced place right now. And the fact that she came back without Tom, that she hasn't told anybody about Tom, it's all been this big secret. And now we get to this episode and she's finally starting to reveal some information. But then if you think about it, remember last season, Joe and Sarah get engaged. And then the next scene, pretty much, we see Sarah is asleep in bed and Joe is playing a game of tank battle anonymously against Cam. He knows it's Cam. He is anonymous. So now you think about this, and Cam is engaged to, well, she's married. She's married to Tom. And, we see a couple of these quick chats with him, but then she goes off and she goes to see Joe at 1:30 a.m. to tell him about Gordon, or for something else. So I think it just makes you feel like, what's this marriage? What's happening here? What is happening between these people? And what's happening with her and Joe? I mean, because that specter has been looming over everything. So yeah, I mean, I think I just continue to see the sort of echoes of one character's behavior and another character's behavior in the following season. All right. We've got a nice long one here from Synthetic Gerbil from 108. And there's a bunch of context that's specific to 108, but there's a reason I wanted to pull this one in here. So Synthetic Gerbil says, in my head, Donna's parents have somewhat of a disconnection or disapproval of Gordon because of wealth. There's a sort of inherent classism that I feel like I've caught on to, and maybe this is more informed by many events in the rest of the series, but it seems like it's kind of a thought that Donna could marry another Southern man who would stay in Texas and already have a pool of money and success without always striving for it the way Gordon has been so far. I think a lot of what informs Donna's upbringing is that, as Gordon says in this episode, she was once crazy. I think despite how Donna's parents taught her how to be, there's a part of her that is attracted to an anxious genius pulling her every which way, whether it be Cameron or Gordon. And I think there's an inherent greed that comes off in Donna's parents that may also be a part of Donna's dark side. In season 2, you can see how Susan will accept the check for the failed symphonic, and Gordon is somewhat taken aback. It wasn't an investment in Gordon or Donna's future. It was them basically just lending Gordon money. It's not like they needed the money, and even still, by taking Gordon's money, they're still taking from his family overall. And it's also casual as part of the conversation for Susan. Up until Mutiny's success and her meeting Diane, Donna has been the voice of reason, the person taking on everyone's burdens, and the one maybe being hurt the most. When she meets Diane and sees her vacation home, I think she gets a taste of the good life that she was raised upon and starts to want to chase that. This was within a longer comment, actually, that has spoilers for the future, but I wanted to sort of look at this part and just say, we've certainly seen, look, Donna's mom really had been pushing her in the direction of people like Hunt. She clearly there was no loss for Susan with Gordon. Susan obviously never felt that the marriage with Gordon was the right thing for Donna. She's said as much many times. Donna doesn't necessarily ever defend him. But there is sort of but we were at Berkeley together. I mean, like we've spent so much time together, and now we're hearing in this episode some of those stories. But I think about sort of the Diane versus Gordon situation, because Gordon, ran a business, sold it, made tons of money. They had the wealth that perhaps Susan would have aspired to, wanted her to have. But there is sort of like almost a new money, old money feel to it. Not that Diane's is old money necessarily, but like Gordon's is really new and hers is just new, perhaps. We are seeing such a quality of life difference between what it looked like in the Clark household when they had money versus what it looks like for Diane when she does. And I think now that we are getting a chance to see Donna fully immersed in Diane's world, I don't know if she would argue with Susan about that's what she wants. I mean, it's a different thing altogether. It's the Silicon Valley version or Sonoma version of what Susan was hoping for. But I think Donna fits really well in this world. She fits really well with Diane's kid and her friends. Her stories about her wild days are very much in the right place for this, but she's also living sort of a luxurious lifestyle here. This does feel like it's well suited for Donna, and Donna's kind of liking being in this world. And what do you do with that information? You know, I mean, it's just like proof that, like, is the life that she has with Gordon what she wanted, or is a life like this what she wants? Can she have both of those things? So I love that comment. Now, Synthetic Gerbil also had a comment from 303 that I wanted to bring in here that lets me talk a little bit more about Ryan and Joe. So if you remember, there was the whole bit about Ryan bringing wine to that big raucous party that Joe was having in his apartment. And, you know, it wasn't really the kind of party that you bring wine to, but Ryan did. And Joe accepted it. Like, thank you so much for bringing, this was so thoughtful of you. So Synthetic Gerbil shares, wow, your reading of the wine scene has so much thought and such a callback to season 1 that I would have considered at all. A scene I had never given too much thought to other than a throwaway joke. Almost, it's actually very multifaceted. Great one, Melissa. I think personally, maybe that Ryan even tried to show up and give him a gift as a thing a person does at a party shows what a social amateur Ryan is too, and maybe endears him to Joe just a little bit more. I think there's something about Ryan that is sort of like, take me under your wing, Mr. McMillan. And I think that take me under your wing, Mr. McMillan feeling is why I like the Hey Little Bird Fly Away Home so much from the Jockey Full of Bourbon song. Because Ryan is just a guy who's begging for a little shaping. He's smart. He's got energy and spirit and enthusiasm, and he's got some good ideas, but he doesn't know how to execute things. And it just needs a little bit of shaping. And he just sort of offers himself up, and Joe takes that on because he almost can't not. And it is endearing. I do agree that Ryan is sort of shapeable in this way. Okay, let's get one from Mingo. This was a comment from my interview with Scott Michael Foster, who played Hunt. And Mingo says, you hit on something I really appreciated in this series, and that was how many male-female relationships were pure platonic, which seems almost impossible in a lot of other TV series. I wanted to bring that in here because I'm just really enjoying the Gordon and Cam stuff. The friendship that they've been forming here in these last couple of episodes, I mean, they've you know, we've seen them connect before, but not like this. And, you know, they're just buddies now. And not buddies like on a let's drink together and play Super Mario Brothers together level. They're also going pretty deep in terms of the things that are happening in their lives. And particularly Gordon. But for Cam to be able to articulate, like, Gordon is the first person she tells that she's married. And yeah, she obviously indicated it for Joe, but you know, I think that's a big deal for her. And, you know, I just am really enjoying exploring what that friendship looks like for them. Okay, let's hear from Amelia Flowers, who has a point about season 3, episode 3. She says, I love the catch about the lyrics when Ryan sees or meets Joe, and that they're both somehow separate from the other party goers. So that's probably Absolute Beginners with David Bowie. About Joe and Ryan's relationship, I feel he is a mix between Gordon and Cam. I'd always thought of him as more Cam as he was a coder, but how Joe went after Ryan when Gordon turned him down, I never connected the two before. So yeah, I think it's interesting because initially when I first read this comment, I thought he's sort of like a wannabe Cam slash Gordon, but isn't. But then when I really thought about that, like he's got the talent and the technical ability of Cam and Gordon. And he's got the potential to partner with Joe like they do. But initially I thought, yeah, but then he approaches Joe with this energy like, I want to work with you. I'm so excited. You tell me what we're going to do. And he doesn't have an idea that he's pushing. And he doesn't necessarily have the get up and go. He doesn't have yes, he hasn't enough to say he wants to work with Joe, but that's all he's got. And then he's just going to take a back seat and let Joe instruct him. And I never really saw Gordon or Cam as being people who were happy to let Joe instruct them. But when I think about how those characters started, I guess they kind of do, like Gordon being pulled into that sales meeting, Joe parking in his spot, Gordon not really fighting it. I guess that is a little bit, like shades of that. Cam, has that first meeting in the pilot with Joe. They hook up, she basically says no, she rejects him and he has to come back to her later. And then initially when she's working at Cardiff Electric, she is sort of taking instruction. She is trying to figure out how to get the code to work. She is, doing those depositions. She's having those meetings with the lawyers from IBM. So I think there is a little bit in the beginning of both of those characters' stories where Joe is still very much taking the lead. So maybe there is more parallel here across the board. For Ryan, we're now getting to a place where he is as knowledgeable about this project and contributing important information and ideas, information that Joe also considers important. So yeah, I do think it's an interesting sort of Gordon Cam hybrid. But this relationship does feel more like mentoring to me for a longer time than those other ones did. So thank you for that, Amelia. All right. And now, some comments from Evan the Stray. First, I wanted to bring in a comment from season 2, episode 10 that was perfect for this moment. He says, Joe's line to Tim the Tool of, I want to make maps irrelevant. Really thinking this is also metaphorical for Joe. Maps help function as the way to a destination, or let's say a goal, a prescribed route to follow, but can maybe feel limiting and restrictive. Joe's hallmark is doing an end around, for example, forcing Cardiff's hand to develop a PC and going off the beaten path, such as hiking to the observatory. Sorry, too literal, but that scene is so discussed. He definitely wants to blaze his own trail, as does Cam for that matter. They're not so dissimilar after all, just ask Tom. Okay, the I want to make maps irrelevant line, when he says that in season 2, episode 10, cut to 306, where Joe is pitching with a map on his face. And yes, all of that is with the idea of making maps irrelevant and to sort of make everybody connected no matter where they are. Or everybody within this network connected, but like he wants this to be a public utility. He wants people to have access wherever they are. But I want to make maps irrelevant, and then having a whole pitch with a map on your face and then taking away some of those lines and showing us what's left. I just think that's so interesting. And we've seen before this show doing computer screens with people's faces reflected in them. So this is a new way to do something like that, where we've got the projection and Joe's face is sort of superimposed onto the projection. So I love that they did that technique here. Okay, regarding this episode, Evan has a whole bunch of comments and got obviously very excited to comment about this episode. So let's dig into it. A similar light oversaturation effect is used entering the episode, like when we saw Ryan giving his missing the train pitch to Joe in his office. This makes me feel like it's signaling that this is in fact the big thing. Joe and Ryan are in a large white server room to be discussing plans concerning NSFNet. I almost forgot about the long distance telecom company, MCI, existing, and it made me chuckle. The long distance telecom wars seem to die with mass consumer adoption of the cell phone with free long distance calling. It's so hard for me to see any room looking like this and not thinking of the Intersect room in the show Chuck. That show feels like a big hug for nerds who need one. I pretty shamelessly repped for that show, which I love. The more connection, the more energy. Tracers work in both directions, so don't get lost. Is unseasoned food really worth eating time after time? Okay, so we've got some Chuck references here. Maybe that inspires some of us to go check out the show Chuck. But yeah, the light oversaturation, they're definitely playing with light in some interesting ways this season, for sure, multiple times. Thinly veiled contempt from Cam to Donna feels like it's coming to a head, and Donna is a step or two behind. Holy moly, do I want to hear a specific song inclusion in the background, pairing so well Cam's energy and words when she's talking to Donna about firing Doug and Craig, and then talking to Diane and Donna. It's Ministry's TV2 from 1992, specifically emphasized would be the lyrics, "You're lying through your teeth." However, there are some abstract lyrics that could make sense along with some specific ones that felt a bit closer and surprising. It's definitely worth checking out to feel the tension. It's a pretty unforgiving and harsh industrial metal track. I love the word contempt to describe Cam and Cam's feeling toward Donna at the start of this episode, well, really throughout this episode. I didn't land on that word as I was describing it, but it feels really accurate. And we know what Cam's like when she's been betrayed. I mean, betrayal is not a good feeling for anybody, but for her, this was a really big deal that Donna lied. Donna is enduring cranky tudes in her general direction, both at home and at work, deserving so or not. More so from Cameron, less so from Gordon. Ideally, Cam would confront Donna directly and immediately about her new information from speaking to Diane. However, if she has an expectation of Donna being dishonest, that may feel a bit like a fool's errand, and that wouldn't be fruitful. Also, with Cameron's punk attitude, Diane suggesting Cam and Donna fix whatever's going on between them, it may feel to Cameron like she wants to raise up a giant middle finger to that authoritarianism. Yeah, I think, is there anything in it for Cam if she actually tries to make peace with Donna here? I think if you don't trust somebody, you don't trust somebody, right? She may feel, I think that the way this went down, she also knows that Donna wasn't transparent with Diane about what she had done. But all of this did transpire at a dinner that Cam was not at. And there is perhaps a closer connection happening between Diane and Donna here. So to what extent does she really feel she can trust Diane? I don't feel like she's really at odds with Diane here yet. I feel like she's at odds with Donna. I don't know if it'll ever get to that place, but it does feel like Diane and Donna have like more of a thing than Cam has with Diane. So there's that. Donna's 4 kids on the couch playing video games. Well, 2 playing and hogging it all, but in all seriousness, I'd love to play Super Mario Brothers with Cam right now. It's great how excited she and Gordon get when they discover the first warp zone. Feels so real as I'm eating Greek yogurt and Old Man All Brand Bud cereal as a midnight snack. Cameron seeing Gordon pass out has her genuinely concerned. She learns about his neurodegenerative disease and gains perspective on Gordon and Donna's life. Perhaps this will also soften her hard edge approach with Donna. That remains to be seen, right? We have to see that. I think it certainly puts it into context how much Donna's been dealing with when she suddenly has this information and realizes that the kids don't have it and nobody else has it. I do think that's maybe a place where she can find some empathy for Donna, but we'll see if she does. We see Diane's luxury, Donna's luxuriating, psychedelic shrooms. Evan gets a little poetic here today. Casting sidebar. Oh my God, Caitlin McGee as Kimberly Gould looks so much like she could be Annabeth Gish's actual daughter. Amazing. Yeah, agreed. Totally agreed. Gordon's and Cameron's neo-adolescent playtime continues. Gordon buys a larger screen projection television and they beat Super Mario Brothers. They celebrate, enjoy the moment briefly, and Gordon asks Cam if she wants to see something cool, the ham radio. She responds without any hesitation. Yeah, It's so funny, riding the high. She seems to genuinely think the ham radio is cool, or at least in the caring context she feels Gordon needs her to, and she softens for that. The scene is so heartwarming. She recognizes that Gordon feels left behind. Yes, I know, shaking my head. Candlebox is far behind. Can't not hear it now. And he really needs and he really needs Joe to be a friend, give him credit for his tabula rasa software. Yeah, I mean, I think Cam hearing all of this stuff in close conjunction, I think that the pairing of having the information about Gordon's illness and knowing that Gordon feels like his legacy is nothing. You know, the way he talks about, I just wish Joe would give me credit for this, and the way he feels like he's got nothing else to his legacy. I think those things paired together makes her really feel for him in a way that she never has before. Remember, many episodes back, seasons ago, she was referring to Gordon as a guy who's just traumatized from being a loser his entire life. And it was like, well, that was a little reductive when she said that. And now he's saying it, and that's not okay. You know? Boz at the opera. What a great little scene. Boz and Doris, the bartender, love it. Boz's and Diane's opera after party of two was calming. I've really felt that Boz has needed a good friend and confidant recently. Diane likes the cut of his jib, his constancy, and this makes sense for her to me. However, you can keep the scotch and whiskey, Boz. How to make whiskey? Combine 10 parts vodka with 1 part earwax. Okay, Evan's not a fan. Not a fan of the whiskey, but a fan of Boz and a fan of Diane. When Tom asks Cam whether she has told anybody about their marriage and she doesn't respond, I don't think she has, because she wants it to stay perfect and personal, not because she is embarrassed. She doesn't want to see, hear, and thereby feel anybody else's judgment on that decision. In this way, and for right now, it stays perfect. It's an intra-episodal parallelism to Joe's and Ryan's network development aspirations, emotional waypoints of, but right now it's perfect moments. Wow, that's a good point. I saw where you were headed with that partway in, and I was like, this is it. This is the take. Yeah, right now it's perfect. So maybe it's less about her fragility and more about keeping this thing what it is right now. Donna's psilocybin self-therapy scene was one of the clips played at the ATX TV festival this year. It's tremendous. Hallucinating Donna apologizes to Cameron, and they express their mutual need for each other. Although in the overall context of the episode, it feels like it could be a little solipsistic on Donna's part. Also, Mercy Street by Peter Gabriel's prominently featured in it. This song is on the official Halt and Catch Fire soundtrack. Buy it for Protonics. It's interesting the difference between how it resonated with me at the festival and how it resonated with me here at home. It was an immensely emotional experience at the festival, despite being in a room full of people and in front of VIPs. Or maybe that actually added to the emotionality. Lack of sleep was likely compounding that. Yeah, obviously the scene meant a lot to them to pull this clip. So, and it obviously meant a lot to Carrie Bechet. So I think that always makes you appreciate something or look at it a little bit differently. But yeah, that scene, it's very sort of, I don't know, calming. And it's sort of like in shows where they start out on an episode with a dream sequence and you're like, oh, this is a little bit off. This can't be right. In this, we know Donna's not asleep, but the way that apology goes down and the way Cam receives it does not feel real. And so it's sort of fun how they sort of take you into that world and then drift you back out of it. Let's see. Boz the gentleman. Diane's offer rejected. About face falls short. I feel like Evan got so poetic here today, and it doesn't end there. But first, we're going to get this thought. Does Cameron use Gordon as a partial excuse to see Joe, to passively share that she is now married, and for her to see if feelings for Joe are gone? It seems plausible. She flinches at the uncorking of the sparkling wine or champagne after Joe sees the ring on her finger and congratulates her on getting married. It's almost like hearing that she's married is shocking to her as well. Shocked enough that she can't even utter Tom's name. Joe, who apparently keeps my hours, doesn't buy she's there solely for Gordon either. But good on Cameron. Anyways, two birds, one stone. Mackenzie's nonverbal skills are so good. It would have to be absolutely fun to work opposite of her involving nonverbals. Yeah, is she trying to see if she still has feelings for Joe? I mean, what information do you come away with here? It looks like they could make out at any point in these scenes. But there's still so much tension there too. Like it's a lot going on in that scene. But yeah, she doesn't come back. She doesn't give Joe Tom's name. She doesn't actually let this encounter become about anything other than Gordon in what she says. Joe takes a lot of other stuff away from it, but she does not. Okay, some more poetry here. Capri Sun is drank. Cameron flew the Clark's coupe. Surprise on faces. Cam's ham to Gordon. Gets a rep on marriage news. Earns Gordon's congrats. However, Cameron does not appear totally convinced she is happy too. Cano makes Joe halt. No purchases or promises. No NSF net. The more I ruminate on this show, the more I'm feeling like it's making life clearer. Certainly not in the sense of some guy who's never been introspective, rather significantly opposite, in fact. Specifically, distilling what its essence is, which matters: connection and openness. In this regard, connection, an interest or experience in common, functioning as a pathway for openness. Openness, communicating fundamentally emotional perspectives with a separate entity reciprocating, thereby reinforcing or strengthening a connection between entities. And that's the immutable thing, the thing for which people yearn. Profoundly deep, meaningful relationships, and they'll love or hate, or what appears as the means of hate, to protect them. The thing that gets you to the thing. Beautifully said, Evan. In a STEM perspective, it's referred to as a positive loop gain in a closed reaction loop. However, it can become volatile, as in thermal runaway, for example, Halt and Catch Fire. A lengthy, dense essay could be written on the appropriate analogies between various examples of a closed positive loop gain in human relationships, but I won't be so verbose. However, it's tempting, but at a later date. Okay, the quote boat from Evan. Stern. Here's to me, Doris. We do have an overlap there. I like that. Port. Yeah, well, while a wine farm retreat with you sounds super romantic, I'm busy this weekend, says Cam. What other part of the boat do we need a quote from? Starboard. I thought I was going to retire in Texas, be around. I'd take little Sam to a ball game a couple times a month. I wanted to be able to tell him I did things that mattered. Now I got stories no one cares about. Foolish things coming from a man my age. Apologies. Yeah, it's from Boz. And actually, it makes me think about what Gordon was saying. He is also sort of like, what's my legacy really? Bow. Is it, what's his name? Doesn't matter. Could have been anyone. You were happy for a moment and you thought the person standing closest to you was the source. Trust me, I've been there. Joe. And the conning tower. I, Joe McMillan, stole the code to the security software from Gordon Clark. Everything this company is built on is his. Yeah, let's see where that goes after this. That's a bomb to drop. And that, my friends, is 306. Some really interesting stuff here that as much as I try to sort of talk my way into conclusions about certain scenes as I'm going through, there are a couple that I still wasn't able to come up with one. So I'm keen to get your feedback as we go through. And in the meantime, everybody, we're getting ready for 307. So go out there and watch Halt and Catch Fire. Bye, everyone.